here, especially Dr. Saltzman. Thanks for coming up. And I just want to open it up with about 10 minutes to talk about, for me, the kind of the big picture and where meditation, mindfulness kind of fits into wellness for me. And then an hour and a half will be with Dr. Saltzman's work. But I, again, just want to thank her and thank you guys for being here. And to really say that it's a testament to you to take time out of your very busy lives to care about your wellness, to care about what you can do better for your own health. And for me, it's the health of our families, the health of our society, to be able to start to think in this bigger picture. And it's so easy in this area, or just so easy to get wrapped up into what's right in front of us as opposed to think about moving forward as in our own personal well-being. So I've been hanging around physical therapy, and it's hard to say now, for 25 plus years, having worked in a lot of different realms, from elite athletes to patients with a lot of chronic pain, and have developed this idea of resilience around a bank account, if you will. And that's what we're going to go into here in a couple of minutes. But most of my clients really care about maintaining an active lifestyle over time. How do we feel a lot better at 50 than we did 40, or feel better at 60 or 70 than we did 50? Yeah, thank you for that. So that's what this is about. And it's probably started for me, probably about 15 years ago, when a friend of mine just watched me take a fall off of my mountain bike. It's one of my favorite activities, falling off of my mountain bike, not riding my mountain bike, but falling. And he watched me just bounce right back. He got up pretty quickly and just kept on riding. And he said, Curtis, when we're young, we tend to bounce like we're a ball. But as we get a little bit older, we hit the ground and we splat like a pumpkin. And what I found is, over the years, that it's amazing, if I can work on my resilience, I still bounce better. But a couple of years after that, I got this email from a client that says, for every decade of life, it seems I need another pillow. One underneath my knees, one under my back, maybe even one underneath my head. And when I took my own big significant fall a couple years after my friend made that comment about not bouncing anymore, I found that my road back to health was a lot more about the wellness as opposed to just what I knew as a physical therapist, the physical therapy side. It was about integrating not just physical, but intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual. And I'm not saying that there's some amazing fountain of youth out there, but what I am arguing is that we might be able to grow younger each year, to put a little bit more health and wellness into our bank account. And the idea that maybe there's a chronological age on one side of things and a biological age on another. And there's even some websites out there, as you can see, and there's more than this, that talk about, hey, put in a bunch of factors, and how old are you really? Because I see so many people that are 30 and they look like they're 60, and so many of the people I work with are 70 or 80 and they look like they're 30, 40, and 50. Because I believe that at the end of the day, we all have untapped potential. We're all not sitting at that place where we could potentially be. And that at any age, we can find more health, find more life, find more joy. And so I put together this idea of a wellness account, physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and how these things put together. So today, just spending a couple of minutes about what do I mean by a balanced wellness account, and then number two, for you to start to think about your own life. And is there one piece of this pie that might be a little bit low? And are you a little bit out of balance in some way? Because at the end of the day, it's not the life, it's how much life in your years, or not lifespan, but really health span. So let's dive in first and talk about wellness. You can read it here: a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being. Physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. Buettner put together a really nice book a bunch of years ago called The Blue Zones. He looked across the world and said, where do people live longest and where are they healthiest? And this is one of the inspirations for this model for me. And where do those places really overlap? What do they have in common? You'll see a lot of these things in common pop up in this lecture. So if wellness is part A, what do I mean by pies? Physical, intellectual, emotional, social, 4 pieces of the pie. Physical first, we'll dive into that really deep in quotes. We'll talk a little bit about intellectual, emotional, and finally social. So that's what I mean by wellness and the 4 pieces of the pie. Next is, what about the account part of the wellness account? Well, on one side of the equation, we have our biological age or our account balance. And then at the bottom, hopefully, chronological age and time marches on. Well, as we'll talk about, wellness tends to slip over age. You know, when we're 5 or 10 or 20 years old, it's a whole lot harder to have amazing wellness, a whole lot easier to have amazing wellness when we're young than to have amazing wellness when we're 50, 60, and 70. But for most of us, this is what happens. We're far below our potential. And for many people who walk in my door, is they've started to go in the red a little bit. Something hurts. And the goal is really to start to move that back in the right direction. So just like a bank account, we can think about a wellness account and how do we start to put money back into that account. Second is balanced. What do I mean by that? So a lot of people walk in and they come in and say, well, I'm putting a lot of time and energy into the physical aspect. I work with a lot of elite level athletes, triathletes, people who run 100 miles, who do back-to-back. I just worked with a client who did Race Across America. They put a lot of time and energy into here, and what happens is one of the other pieces of the pie gets out of balance. Maybe, thank you, maybe they're emotional, they're not checking into their feelings and their way of being. Maybe they've sacrificed a little bit of time and energy for their social. Or maybe they're just putting a lot of time and energy into intellectual. They're really smart. They've got their second PhD. They've gone to college now for their 3rd master's degree. They're working really hard at work. And then all of that energy starts to suck away from, you know, their time with their family, their connection with their son or their daughter. So start to think about for a minute, where are you? Take that piece of paper in front of you and just take a quick look at it, because there's the questions that I'm going to ask you. Either think about them in the moment, maybe if you've got a pen in front of you, maybe circle one. But what account might you be fullest in? Are you fullest in your physical? Maybe it's emotional. Maybe you have a great social connection with your family and friends, but maybe where's your least full account? Maybe you've been putting a lot of time in physical and your connection with friends and family are a little bit less. I'm going to dive into these, but I just want you to get a gut feeling for this. So how do we start making deposits into this account? If the idea is we might be low in one or out of balance from another, how do we start making deposits? And what I work mostly with is the physical side of things. Because how do we take care of our body really matters. It's the only place we have to live, so to speak. And so many of us spend more time and energy, I'm in your way, spend more time and energy working on our car than we do working on our body. And if I had to think about how do we put time and energy into our physical account, probably for me the most valuable one is sleep. There's a really wonderful book out there. If you've not yet had an opportunity to read it, he goes into all the science behind why sleep matters, but I'll almost guarantee you there's a reason in there for you. Whether it's wages, or whether it's working memory, or whether it's better performance, if you care about moving forward in any part of your life, sleep is really valuable. And you can dive into the depths of that, but there's a really nice reference on it. Thank you. The next is nutrition. Probably one of my favorite books, Food Rules, but all of Michael Pollan's books around nutrition are great. And of course, there's a lot of books out there. But simply said, eat real food, eat a whole bunch of plants, and don't eat a lot. You know, make sure that you're taking in calories and you're expending just as many, because weight makes a difference for all kinds of pieces. And then an anti-inflammatory diet, whatever that means for you. Certainly processed foods and processed sugars don't do good for inflammation, and inflammation is definitely one of the drivers of our system not working as well. Because at the end of the day, I really want to look a lot more like this gal. It'll be a little bit hard to hear, but she's 72 years old. I'm sorry, she's 80 years old, and she started working out at 72 years. Started working out at 72 years old, and she's 80. And it's just amazing what happens when we move. When we work on our strength, when we work on our flexibility, when we work on the way our body moves, it really serves us over time. Because the opposite of movement is what I like to say is the body is cement waiting to harden. The body's cement waiting to harden, and we get stuck in these positions where we just can't move out of that place. We get stuck in these ruts, if you will, of movement, and our body loses options. Whether we lose options from crashes or injuries, our body gets these stuck places inside of them, and the next thing you know, instead of having a lot of money in our account, we get stuck in this zone of pain, just bouncing checks. Our body has lots of challenges, and we just start bouncing checks. So I just want to spend a minute talking about intellectual, emotional, to say that they're important. Amy's going to go into those a bit, and it's a place that you can dive into, but to know that each one of these plays on the other. Intellectual, thinking, thoughts, feeling, and being. And when you start to think about intellectual, one of the biggest things to note is we just should keep, back up a little bit, thank you. We should just keep on learning. At any age, we should just keep challenging our brains and keep on learning. In particularly, our ability to work on focus and attention, because telomeres, have you ever heard of that? At the end caps of our DNA, they're tied to our health, our wellness, our longevity, these idea of telomeres. And when we work on our focus and our attention, it makes a big difference in how long we live and how well we live. Also, wandering minds associated with aging. So if we make the note that our emotional and our intellectual state helps our physical state, maybe our physical state actually helps our emotional state. Leg power produces a difference in cognitive aging. And it's amazing. Thank you. That's my 10, right? Perfect. So cognitive aging after 10 years, and you see that the mental health has changed with our physical leg power. Basically, we work our bodies and our minds get healthier. We work our bodies and our bodies allow us to have more attention, and the opposite's true. Next, emotions. If we're not spending some time kind of checking in with ourselves, either writing journals or spending time with therapists or talking to our coaches or people we trust and really expressing those emotions, it's going to it's going to impede our performance if we're not making those connections with our own heart. Next, oh boy, this is probably one that's deep connected to me, which is our social connectedness. Not just because it makes a difference for the way we feel, but for me, the purpose in life is really to connect and to be with people. And recent research has really shown that loneliness is a killer, literally a killer of us. And what's the research? I'm going to spit it out. Research in the U.S. looked at 218 studies and the health effects of social isolation and loneliness over 4 million people. And they discovered that lonely people had a 50% increase in risk of early death. Loneliness, a 50% increase in early death. Worse than excessive drinking, worse than obesity. Connect with your friends. The next time you're out for that hike or you're out for that ride, be social. When you get home, don't just check into your iPhone and check back into work, but maybe connect with your spouse or connect with your kids, because it will literally keep you alive longer and it will keep you feeling better. Finally, spiritual wellness, if you will, or social wellness. That ability to, as Brene Brown says here, recognizing and celebrating that we're all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Probably my favorite quote around this is something I picked up from, and I just lost his name. Dan. It'll hit me in a moment. Which is, quantum physics has shown that the interconnectedness of all things. What's wrong with the human mind that we can't believe or buy into that interconnectedness? You know, physics has shown that. Why do we have such a hard time in believing that we're all inextricably connected, and that love and compassion is really what pulls us together? So in wrapping up, social and spiritual, figure out what your purpose is in life, how you can connect to other people and connect socially. Pulling it together, wellness, an active process of becoming aware and making choices. That's what we're here for, is to start to learn and to be able to make better choices in life. So with that, how diversified are you? If you start to think about your bank account, are you pretty evenly divided? Are you going through a time in life where you're a little bit more out of balance? Do you have a plan to get back in balance? So maybe here or maybe tonight at home, look at this question and think about it yourself. Because when you start to get out of balance, it really starts to pull on all the other places in your life. Because for me, so long in my life, I climbed this ladder. I climbed the ladder to success in order to reach a goal, just to find out that my ladder was up against the wrong building. Meaning I was climbing the goal of success and realized I lost connection with my wife. I lost this connection with my own body, my feelings. My whole physical being was out of place. Basically, I was running on a treadmill that I was trying to get more money or trying to accomplish more or trying to have this way of being about myself, and it just left me drained. It left me in a space where I was running on society's treadmill. So what I say to you is, let's start doing the things that we care about and finally getting the places that we want to go, being the people we want to be and feeling the way we'd like to feel. Because at the end of the day, there's an end of the day, and I don't want to say I wish I hadn't worked so hard, or I wish I had stayed connected with my friends, or I wish I'd had the courage to live my life the way I'd wanted to. Because our time is limited, and follow your own voice, follow your intuition, and everything else is secondary. Or another way I like to say it is, a friend of mine said, Curtis, if you really want to get out of the hole you've dug for yourself, the first step is to stop digging. Stop digging the hole that you've been putting yourself in. So what matters to you? What do you really care about? Is it being a great mom or a dad? And how much energy or time are you putting into that? Do you care about getting more physically healthy? And how much time are you putting into that? Because this is where I want to be. 82 years old. 82 years old, still doing triathlons. Iron none, and I'm just going to skip it. Make the rest of your life the best of your life, and we believe in empowering human potential. And that's me. Now for Dr. Amy.